of the month of Mar Cheshvan, and we are in the middle of a sugya, in the middle of the fifth paragraph of Maseches Pesachim. The Gemara had told us, just to jump back into it very briefly, the Gemara had been discussing a situation where, at least according to the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, that there was a possibility of bringing a korban chatas, in theory, from a Chutz Kippurim, not on Erev Pesach, but during the rest of the year, and that this says Ravina in the name of Rav Chisda that it was possible to have a chatas oif, and everybody agreed that a chatas oif is okay. You could, in theory, do such a thing. But what about a chatas behema? And the Gemara had discussed that a chatas behema, no problem, could be left on the mizbech and burnt the next morning. And then we had asked the question, what about a mitzvah? What about an ola? And we said the only time that you have a situation with the ola would be in the case of a mitzvah, where you would have, it is in theory, theoretically possible that you'd bring the ola and then you'd bring the chatas, and all of that would work out. And then the Gemara at the top of Nun Tes Amud Aleph is about to challenge this whole notion that within the opinion of Ravina in the name of Rav Chisda, explaining the shita of Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, within the Brisa. That's what we're up to. Says the Gemara as follows: the top of Nun Tes Amud Aleph. Amar lei Rav Shimon bar Abba Rav Papa. Rav Shimon bar Abba says to Rav Papa, Ledidach, according to you, Damar, that you say Ma'ale umalina b'rosh shel mizbech, that you can leave the korban at the top of the mizbech and then burn it in the next morning. Meaning you'll offer the blood, you do zrikas hadam, and then you'd be able to bring the korban the next morning. So, in such a case, kaimin va'avdina and milsel kohanim, you're going to end up putting the kohanim in a compromising situation. They're going to be up there burning after the korban tabid shalbein araban. They're going to burn all of the chalavim, all of the emurim, all of the sinews, and all of the fats, and all of the leftovers of the korbanos. And then there's going to be like this whole korban that's going to be sitting there. They're going to put it on the mizbech. They're going to put it in the mizbech. They're not going to know that they're not supposed to burn the meat of this korban yet. Says the Gemara, Desari Diyamu, they're going to think that it belongs to that day. They're going to end up bringing that korban. So Marley, so Rav Papa says back to Rav Shimon bar Abba, no worries. Kohanim is him. You can trust the Kohanim. The Kohanim know what the halach is. The Kohanim are very careful in their performance of the mitzvahs, and therefore you don't have to be so concerned. Amale Rav Ashi Rav Kahana, says Rav Ashi to Rav Kahana, Va'amila Rav Huna Berei Rav Nasan Rav Papa, and some say that this was Rav Huna, the son of Rav Nasan, saying to Rav Papa, meaning within the same discussion that we are having. But as long as the fats of the sacrifices haven't yet been burnt, the Kohanim are not allowed to eat the basar. The Kohanim are not yet allowed to eat the meat. The Tanya, because the Brisa tells us, maybe you would think that the Kohanim could start eating the breast and the thigh of the korban, which they are entitled to, that belongs to the Kohen, in a korban chatas. So the chaz of v'shay kodim aktaras emurim, before you offer up the fats, says the Gemara, Talmud Loimar, it says the Brisa, Talmud Loimar, the pasuk tells us, v'iktir hakohin es achilav mizbecha, the kohen is going to put all of the fats on the mizbech, v'hadar, and then it says v'hayah chazet la'aron levanav. That's when thereafter the chazah, that the breast of the animal now belongs to Aaron and his sons. And for as long as the Kohanim haven't yet eaten the meat of the korban, the balim, the owners of the korban that brought this korban chatas, they don't get kapara yet. Meaning they're still mechusrei kapara until the Kohanim eat from the meat. Which means we have a big problem, because the Kohanim are only able to eat the meat of the korban once all of the fats are brought to the mizbech. And the balim are only going to get kapara once the Kohanim eat the meat. But the meat is not going to be offered on the mizbech. The chalavim and emurim are not going to be offered on the mizbech until the next morning. And this whole reason for this whole story was to prove, according to Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, within the Mishnah, within the Brisa, that it would be possible that after the bringing of the Korban Pesach, that you would after the bringing of the korban atamid on any regular day, that you'd be able to have somebody that's mechusik kippurim come and bring a korban later in the day, so that he could eat korbanos that night. And we said that that's only going to work if the korban is left sitting on the mizbech until the next day. But if the kohanim haven't eaten it, then because the Mizbech hasn't yet gotten the Mizbech's share, then the Baalim are not niskaper, so the whole thing falls apart. The Tanya, because we learned in the Brisa, v'achlu asam asher kupar bahem. Pasuk says they will eat from them asher kupar bahem, those that are receiving atonement through them, meaning, and then there's atonement. What comes out from this, the limit from the pasuk, is that the Kohanim eat from the carbon, and then the Baalim get kapara. So Amarle, the answer is either from Rav Papa or from Rav Kahana, whoever this was addressed to. Amarle kevan deloy efshar, since it is impossible to offer the meat on the mizbech. Asam kemi shenitmu ay she'abdu. We consider this as if this bas of the carbon became tameh or was lost. How? The Tanya, we have in a brisa, yachol nitmu emurim oy she'avdu. What happens if the fats of the carbon became tameh or got lost? Lo yihu kahanim zachayim b'chaz v'shaik. Would the kahanim not be able to take the chaz v'shaik? They now lose out their rights to the chaz v'shaik. Meaning, all that's left is to burn that on the mizbech, but it needs to be there and it needs to be tahar. What happens if that got lost or became tameh? Says the pasuk Talmud Leimar, v'haya chazeh la'aron levanav. It does still belong to Aaron and his sons, mikol makom, in any situation. And since there is a technical isser of bringing the chalavim emurim, you have to bring them the next day. That doesn't mean that Aaron and his sons don't get the chaz v'shaik. Meaning, the order is you take the chaz v'shaik after the chalavim emurim are put on the mizbech. But what if it's impossible to put them on the mizbech? If it's impossible to put them in the mizbech, you still get the chaz v'shaik. I mean, that's not tameh. That wasn't lost, so you can still have it. And Aaron and his sons can still take the chaz v'shaik, and then the Baalim would be able to be niskaper, even though the mizbech hasn't yet taken that piece of the mizbech, because the Torah says you alim hashlim kol karban as kulam, that the karban tamid shel bein harabayim is the last karban that is offered on the mizbech for that day. What comes out from this is the Torah is effectively saying, this is how the Gemara is answering. The Torah is effectively saying, Hashem is saying, I'll have this tomorrow. That's okay. You've already given as much as you can right now. You don't have to give me anything else right now. And then the Kohanim can take what they have to take, and the Baalim on his kapper. Says the Gemara, Rav Kahana, Rav Kahana asked the kasha as follows. Ksiv, the pasuk says, Lo yalin chelev chagi ad boker. Do not leave the fats of my chag, of my sacrifice, until the next morning. Ad boker hu, meaning you cannot leave it until the morning. You can leave it there the whole night. Meaning the din is that you're not allowed to leave it until the morning. Once morning comes, that's noser. That is an isser of noser, and you have to burn it, you have to destroy it. But the whole night you're allowed to leave it there. Uksiv, and the pasuk also says, V'iktir ala chal ve'ashlamim, that you have to offer on it the karban hashlamim. Ala hashlem kol karban askulam. You have to offer on it all the fats of the shlamim, which the Gemara was Dirish 2 days ago. That ashlim ala hashlem kol karban askulam, that you have to finish all the karbanos with the karban ha-tamid, which means one pasuk says that you can leave fats overnight, and the other says you have to burn everything by that day. So we say, who moisiv la v'hu mefarikla. So Rav Kahana, who asked the question, v'hu mefarikla, and he answered the question. Kshe ru, that is when they are left over. Meaning, what does it mean? So Rashi says, mikarbanos shenizrak damim kaidim tamid. It is permissible to leave over the fats of a karban whose blood was already sprinkled on the mizbech before the karban tamid. Says Rashi, v'lo yispiku le-hakriv, and you didn't have enough time to bring the animal, to bring all of the parts of it onto the mizbech. Dekevan denira le-hakrava kaidim lachen, since it seems like it was makriv already beforehand. Lachen al tamid shel shachar hu mushlam. It'll be mushlam by the karban tamid shel shachar, meaning it'll go after the karban tamid of the morning. Since it looks like it was brought, meaning there's two parts to this. One is, technically it's mutter to do this, and you don't want it to look like you're bringing a korban afterwards. So two things go on here. You leave the chelev until the next morning, and then you bring it by the korban atamid. That's how it works. After the next korban atamid. So the kasha is, how could it be that you leave something until the next morning to offer afterwards? We said no, that's when the shikas hadam has already happened. So Rami le Rav Safra le Rav Safra asked the question to Rav. Ksiv the pasuk says lo yolin la boiker zevachag hapasach. Don't leave until morning. The meat of the chag of Pesach, meaning the korban of Pesach. La boiker hu de lo yolin, you cannot leave it until the morning. Hakol la yolin, you can leave it all night. Vaxiv the pasuk says ola Shabbos b'Shabbos, the ola of Shabbos on Shabbos. V'loy ola schol b'Shabbos, you're not allowed to offer a offering of chol on Shabbos. V'loy ola schol b'Yom Tov, and you cannot offer an offering of chol of a weekday on Yom Tov. So, what's the kasha? So, the pasuk says v'loy yolin la boiker zeva chag hapasach. You shouldn't leave the korban Pesach overnight. Says Rashi, what's going on here? Hold on. Ha the loyal hakol alayla yalin says Rashi ve'yaktir belele yamtiv. You can hakol alayla yalin ve'yaktir belele yamtiv. You'd be able to offer it belele yamtiv on yamtiv night. Ve'af al pi shenois mekavin shechol, even though it's left over from a korban of a weekday. Da yudalet shenizuk dama Pesach by cholhu, because Erev Pesach is not a yamtiv; it is a chol. So you have a problem here. One pasuk says lo yalim la boker zevachag Pesach. Don't leave it until the next day, meaning all the parts of the korban Pesach that were brought on the mizbech, the chalavim minimurim that had to be brought on the mizbech, that you have to burn before nightfall. That you have to burn before the morning. But the pasuk also says lo olas chol b'Shabbos v'lo olas chol b'Yom Tov. You're not allowed to bring a korban of a weekday on a Yom Tov, which means that all of the chalavim minimurim of the korban Pesach that were brought, that were shechted, and the blood was sprinkled on the mizbech on Erev Pesach, you can't burn them later. So he says you can't burn it on Yom Tov. Already this question was asked before. And he explained to him, no, this is talking about a 14th day of the month of Nisan that fell out on a Shabbos. The Chelvi Shabbos craving by Yom Tov, that the chelev of a Shabbos can be brought on Yom Tov. You'd be able to do so on Yom Tov. Marley says to him, Mishum the Chelvi Shabbos craving by Yom Tov. Since the fats of Shabbos are brought on a Yom Tov, we should get up and say that this whole pasuk is that the kimta of the Torah, that the Torah is talking about this once in every every 107 shot, that you're going to have the 14th that falls out on a Shabbos, meaning Erev Pesach Shechalios for Shabbos. So he says, Amarle, he says to him, Shavke Lekra, leave the pasuk alone. Dehu dachik umaykim anafshe, because it is difficult umaykim anafshe, and therefore it can only be talking about itself. Meaning, you can't learn anything else from this. It is simply talking about this case to let you know that you are allowed to burn the korbanos of Shabbos on Motzei Shabbos, meaning on Yom Tov. Says the Mishnah as follows: Ha-Pesach, with regards to a korban Pesach, sheshachta shaloi lishmai, that was shechted not for its shame, and we're going to define what that is in a moment. But it was not done lishmai. V'kibel v'halach v'zarek shaloi lishmai, and the blood was collected and it was taken to the mizbech, v'zarek, and was thrown on the mizbech shaloi lishmai, not for its sake. Oy lishmai v'shaloi lishmai, or it was partially done lishmai and partially done shaloi lishmai. Oy shaloi lishmai, or it was done lishmai shaloi lishmai v'lishmai. It began not for its sake and then for its sake. Pasul. All of these cases are pasul, meaning it needs to be lishmai the whole way through. So says the Gemara, it says the Mishnah. Sorry, Keitza lishmai v'shaloi lishmai. What exactly does lishmai v'shaloi lishmai mean? What are we talking about? So we say lishmai means, says the Mishnah, l'shem Pesach u l'shem shlamim, for the sake of Pesach and then for the sake of shlamim. Shaloi lishmai v'lishmai, l'shem shlamim u l'shem Pesach. If it's shaloi lishmai, it was shechted for the sake of and then shaloi lishmai and then lishmai, that's l'shem shlamim u l'shem shlamim u l'shem Pesach. First it was l'shem shlamim and then l'shem Pesach. And we are then going to continue with the question that the Gemara asks about this tomorrow, rather than the last 4 lines now, because that would land us in the middle of this question by tomorrow. Looking forward. We will see you then. Have a wonderful day.